This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hello, this is Simon Brew. I'm the editor of Film Stories magazine, and a very warm welcome to a special episode of the Film Stories podcast.
Come with me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And movies that had stories.
That the story just sucks them in.
This is just the beginning.
Film Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew, as always. That's absolutely everything you need to know about me. The aim of the podcast, though, well, I hate to talk up the stories of films, and I tend to talk about development stories, production stories, marketing stories, release stories, all those ingredients that go towards making the films that we know and sometimes love. Just that, the films that we know and sometimes love. This particular episode, however, is one of my occasional special Film Stories episodes where I bring in a filmmaker to talk about their latest movie or their body of work, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the podcast Dexter Fletcher, a writer-director who I'm a huge fan of. He's been on before to talk about films like Rocket Man and also his television series about the making of The Godfather, which is called The Offer. And in this particular conversation, we're going to be chatting primarily about his new movie, which is landing on Apple TV Plus at the end of the week. This is being released on the 21st of April 2023. It stars Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. And just one or two little notes just ahead of listening. It was originally set to star Scarlett Johansson, who dropped out for scheduling reasons. We do briefly touch on that. Ana de Armas we talk about in the context of the James Bond film No Time to Die as well. And then at one point we segue towards the Green Cross Code Man. So if you're outside the UK, you might not be familiar with this particular advertising campaign. It was all about road safety, and when Dexter Fletcher was just 6 years old, he appeared in a road safety commercial with the Green Cross Code Man, as played in this case by John Pertwee, the third Doctor Who, if you're, like me, a Doctor Who nerd. I think that's all the information you need going in, short of the fact that we talk about, I think Dexter Fletcher mentions the name Barbara. That is Barbara Broccoli in relation to producing James Bond films. Other than that, I'm just going to play you a clip from the trailer for Ghosted, and you'll hear my conversation with Dexter Fletcher just after this.
I was just wondering if you wanted to, go out sometime.
You want to get a coffee?
Now?
Yes, now.
I'll just hang on.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be.
Her name is Sadie.
Who wakes up next to you?
I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but I think she might be the one.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you.
She really is great. You'll see.
Any word?
She ghosted him. I bet she isn't even seeing your text.
She does travel a lot for work.
Go to her.
I'm going to London.
See, you get it. It's a grand romantic gesture.
Yeah, that is amazing, mate. 5,000 miles to surprise a girl who you've only met once, especially if she's the one who ghosted you.
No, she didn't ghost me. She just doesn't have an international calling plan.
So that was a clip from Ghosted, the latest film from director Dexter Fletcher, who joins me for the third time on this podcast, which means he now owns it. Dexter Fletcher, how are you?
I'm all right. I have shares in it, so I'm expecting to see a very large residual check at some point.
Excellent. Yeah, it's all funded by cryptocurrency. It'll be fine. It's just coming through. No problem at all. So the last time you were on this particular podcast was June of 2022, when The Offer was debuting here in the UK. And you were at that. You told me at that stage you were in the edit of Ghosted, and in your 10 weeks that the Directors Guild of America give you to get your film together. And you said at the end of that, I'm going to present my film after 10 weeks, and hopefully everyone at the studio will love it. So can you you left it on a
young starry-eyed director I am.
Yeah, so you left it on a nice cliffhanger there. So you completed your cut after 10 weeks. You sent it into Skydance, and then what happened?
Well, they went absolutely crazy.
Brilliant. Good crazy?
Yeah, that's why I said that. No, they did. They responded very, very positively. I'm pleased to report they really enjoyed it. On the whole, there was a couple of things like music choices that we had a debate about, but other than that, we felt we had a really good film. And in fact, you know, it's not unusual that after the 10 weeks, the director presents it and they go, "Okay, we've got to reshoot this and find another solution to that." But we found ourselves all in agreement pretty much on the whole. And we didn't have to do any reshoots or pickups, which I'm extremely proud of on a film of this kind of magnitude, that we didn't have to, you know, have any huge holes to go and fix or issues that everybody felt was derailing it. So pretty much the film that people are seeing is pretty much the film that I got to present to the studio after those 10 weeks, which I count as a huge plus and bonus.
Yeah, I mean, do you know when you hand it in? Were you confident that it wasn't going to get much in the way of studio pushback?
No, you can't do that. I was
going to say.
I think you'd find yourself really upset, crying into your falafel that they feed you afterwards. No, because you spend 10 weeks or longer, being so close to it, literally with your nose against the screen. Scrutinizing it, and there is definitely a point of snow blindness where you're going to people, is that good? Is that good still? That funny? I don't know if that's are you moved by that? I mean, I don't know, this music, is it? And you just start, it's a natural part of the process. You have to question it, you have to push against what you've done, and then you go, I've got to just do it. I've said it before, you never finish, you run out of time. There's always a feeling of like, it's not ready. And they go, it doesn't matter, 10 weeks is up, we want to see our film. And because it is their film, they paid for it.
I mean, I've said it before on this podcast again. You're the only director I know who submitted their cut, and then someone said, "Oh, we'll give you some more money to go make that, but even better." When you got to Sunshine on Leith, and it's such a rare story that I mean, you've had the inverse to most people's experience.
Well, maybe so. That was quite a magic moment with Sunshine on Leith. Yeah, but I think it just got to a point. It's like, yeah, we could elevate it more. No, I mean, I think with Ghosted, there's so many elevated moments. There's so much action rolling around, and there's such a good relationship at the heart of it. And we worked so hard prior to shooting, getting that script as right as we could. And I believe, telling the story that we wanted, that we found ourselves in the fairly unique position again of not having to do any reshoots or pickups. So, I mean, if I can get a reputation for that, that'd be really handy. That'd be really good. It's a slightly dangerous one, but nevertheless, it'd be good.
I mean, one of the things about me basically pitching to be your biographer by interviewing at fairly regular intervals in your life.
Well,
I think so. Is you were open about the fact you were seeking an action film. That you were, and you sounded really downbeat about when Paramount pulled the plug on The Saint, which you'd spent quite a lot of time doing. But so were you consciously looking for, after The Saint fell apart, for something else actiony? Was that an itch you were really looking to scratch?
It certainly was, because in developing The Saint, and when we got quite far along, that was something I really started to engage with, obviously, and get excited about the process of that, because it was a very new experience for me, and I had it a little bit with Sherlock 3 as well. We kind of got a certain distance down the road before COVID hit and derailed that. So I'd sort of been dipping my toe in the water, but being the kind of director that I am, which is I'm not not prolifically churning out screenplays every weekend.
Yeah.
For myself to direct, I have to see what opportunities are afforded me, and where what sort of lands on the desk, and I read and go, oh God, this is fantastic. So it was just luck more than like saying to my agent, go find me an action movie. That's what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
It was something that landed on when I was like, this opportunity is real. And they were like, yes, what's your pitch for it? So I had to put together my pitch on that script. When I read it, I knew they were interested to hear my ideas.
Yeah.
And then go and land that job. And it just happened to be it fitted in with what I'd been so kind of immersed in the 2 years prior to that. So yeah, I suppose I got a chance to really emerge as the butterfly from the cocoon of action preparation.
Well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's the animated film you should do next.
Yes.
But when I do wonder when you went in and did your rescue job on Bohemian Rhapsody, if you like, and then when you deliver Rocket Man for a major studio, and love Rocket Man enormously, but does that change the scale of what you're sent? Because you talked there about, you wouldn't mind having a reputation for the director whose cut doesn't need a lot of work, but there's surely an element of trust if you've been a troubleshooter and then backed off the back of that delivered something quite so dramatic.
I suppose, yeah. I don't know if I think of it like that. Like, hey, I hope. I mean, all you can do is, I suppose, is hope for that. I mean, those things are not deliberately engineered by me. They're part of something that comes out of the opportunities that I'm afforded, which are brilliant, and just how I do what I do. I mean, Bohemian came around because I'd had experience with that material before.
Yes, of course.
So that came back round, and yes, it really landed. I hope so, because yes, there's an incredible amount of investment and pressure and big studios involved that, as much as they want content, they want their value for money. They're spending incredible amounts of money. On the movie stars and the directors and the whole production. So yeah, and I think maybe what is to my advantage is I haven't sort of gone from Wild Bill, which was £500,000 to Ghosted. That I can see being a particularly tricky shark to jump, as they say. I've sort of steadily built up, which is good, because it makes me feel a bit more secure about it. It's tough. It is tough.
But it's 5 films in 12 years now, and the rate of them does appear to be slightly accelerating too. I mean, is that opportunity landing at this point? Are you trying to narrow the gap between films a little bit after spending so much time working on films that didn't happen?
Yeah, exactly. Look, I mean, but that is part of the deal. You jump into things that you believe in, and you push for them. You can't prepare for pandemics or for studios changing their head or changing their mind, which is what happened. But no, absolutely, I would love to go from one to the next, have a 3-week break in between, and then just go on again. And because it takes a long time to make them, but it's so great when you do. So the great thing about Ghosted is we started shooting on February 14th last year, and here we are now getting a week away from release, sort of thing. So I was like, okay, that's great. I mean, obviously it was 5-6 months prep before that, but it feels good to be able to work through the whole process and then be thinking, okay, what's next? Looking around, and this film's going to come out soon. What opportunities will it afford me? Because hopefully people see it and go, oh, we should ask him to do this.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
I mean, the first I saw that you were doing Ghosted was, it landed in the Hollywood trade press in August 2021, when you had a very slightly different cast at that point. But I mean, can you talk about when and where it came to you? We found out about it in August 2021. It had been in your life for a few weeks before then.
Yeah, about June I found out about it. I started talking to them. They put it on my desk. My agent came to me. And so I'd known about it a couple of months before, but obviously there's hoops to jump through before that. Chris Evans was a big part of that. He's the producer, and the writers are friends of his, and it came out of a discussion that they all had, and that script got, written on spec, went to Skydance, And I think my name was one that was on a list, like that happens, after Rocket Man.
Yeah.
There's a 5 names on the list, or 10, or however many it is, and they filled out and say, what would you do with this? What's your reaction to that? So about June, I was doing that. July, I pitched for it.
Yeah.
And then they went away for a week or two, and then came back and went, great, when can you start? So, so that made me, I got the job, but through my vision and my take on the film that they responded to, and Chris responded to.
So it was that, or Fast and Furious 10, presumably. That's always the
that
film.
Fast and Furious 10, that, and Lord of the Rings prequel, sequel.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, do all of those as well. So, I mean, it's a slightly different. You said there, it's a slightly different gestation to a project that you've come to before, in that the script has been put together by people with a very established collection of hits to their name already, and also there's a major movie star with fine knitwear involved with it as well. Can't knock him on that. Can't knock him on that.
No. Really good at shirts, yeah,
fair dues. So when you go in and pitch, then I mean, presumably it's still got to be individualistic to you. There's still got to be some toe in the water that interests you, and you can't kind of echo chamber what they've already got.
No, exactly. I mean, for me, it's about how do you peel back the layers of what they've got and actually see what actually runs deeper in it. That's for me anyway, and I'm sure it's the same for any director. It's like, okay, what is this film about? That's the question that you pose for them, and they're asking them. I mean, they leave you to ask those questions because they want you to answer it. Yeah. And then it's about making decisions and choices about what you think it's about, or what you want to say it's about. And I was immediately captivated by the idea of someone who was trying to live a very safe life, but at the same time profoundly unhappy and lonely, in deeper terms, and took a chance, takes a gamble, takes a risk, and goes and puts himself out there, and puts himself out there in a way that he never even began to contemplate and expect. So that, for me, was funny. And also someone who's a very high achiever at work, who's found a really good way of just keeping themselves insulated and untroubled by other people, having that person thrown into a work situation where they've got someone like a puppy following them around. That to me was funny. So it's like I had to find a way to go, like, this is the humor that I see in it. There can be gags in it, but how do I make it constantly make you surprised and smile and feel good, and not be all just about explosions and action, but really about these people.
And agriculture and gardening.
And agriculture and gardening is a very important aspect of it.
I believe that.
And Adrian Brody. So there you go.
Well, and London Taxi Drivers as well. You've got the most realistic, I don't want to spoil the film for those who haven't seen it, you've got the most realistic London taxi driver I've ever seen on film.
Thank you very much. I phoned up my old friend Bern, or he's not an old friend, he's a new friend. But I was like, will you do it? I'm very proud because I wrote that scene.
Is that it? Was that you? Because you just worked with him on The Offer, hadn't you? That's
right. Yeah. I've known him for years, and I loved him, and I was like, in his audition for The Offer was so good. Yeah. And the studio was like, he's in England. I'm like, we got to bring him over. I'm going to bring Matthew Good as well. And they were like, okay. I was lucky, but then when I had that, I was like, Bern, I'm coming to London. You've got 2 nights work. He was like, all right, I'll do it.
So I don't want to go clickbait on the casting change that took place. What interests me is you as a filmmaker, when you've prepared a film with 2 movie stars in it and one of the movie stars changes, and presumably you went and saw No Time to Die with the rest of us and thought, hey, she's just stolen half the film. Does it change the prep at all? Is it a moment of worry when you've got to fill that gap with someone of that way?
Well, of course, there's, the worry is more that you've lost a huge A-lister who can't, for reasons beyond her own control, can't do it. And wonderful things about what she did is, she contributed, her honest opinion about the script and that female role, which were really important and actually really helpful. And then declared really quickly, you know what, I can't do this. And she declared it really quickly and very openly, and it wasn't like she danced us around and she's good friends with Chris, and I got on really well with her, and I think she's fantastic. And then all as one voice, there was a chorus of I went, well, I said to Chris, you've got to phone Anna. This is, it's like, and he was there, and so there was some adjustment to the script to help exploit a little bit Anna's background and her origins, her own, where she comes from, which I liked, and didn't want to have to make her do some accent that would kind of take away from that. I really wanted authenticity in this film as much as possible. And so it was far enough out that it wasn't like, oh my God, we've designed everything for someone who's blonde as a bad example. It actually was fairly seamless in that regard, because Anna's so brilliant and adapted things, character-wise, which we did, and picked up on some of the things that her predecessor had mentioned, and in fact built on that. So it was mercifully painless, to be honest.
There's a 1990s film that I think is really underrated, a rom-com, While You Were Sleeping, with Sandra Bullock. And what I really like about Sandra Bullock, and it really goes to her skill as an actor, I think, is what her character's doing in that film is fundamentally, if you just wrote it down really starkly, quite unlikable and quite unpleasant. And it strikes me that you kind of got the same thing with Ghosted as well, that in different hands, these could be really unlikable characters just by what they go through. As someone, I mean, you always talk with such passion about casting. As someone putting that film together, is that where movie star who brings that degree of gravitas to it can really help turn that? Because, they clearly do in Ghosted. It clearly works. But there is another version of this that's quite dark, in theory.
Yeah, I understand. I think you mean. I mean, I don't think that we shy away from the darkness here.
No, I don't think you do.
I think there is questionable behaviour that is called out, and I think rightly so. I think look, that Chris is a very well established persona or expectation on who he is when he's in a movie. And to get to subvert that or just say, no, that is not what this is.
Yeah.
And because that expectation doesn't go away instantly. People still hang on to it because it's so well ingrained and people love it, that I think that keeps working in our favor. I think also that even questionable behavior can come from albeit a selfish point of view, still a good place. It's like inherently people are not, there's not many bad people. Even Adrian Brody's character for me has a lot of redeeming qualities. And he's very single-minded, and he's saying, I was fed up with being used, and you should be as well. You're worth more than that. That's not a bad thing to be saying. It's how do you find the good message in that? I don't know. I worry. No, I don't worry. I like to have darkness in my film. I like to have the darkness and accepting of that people are layered and complex, and it's not all like, it's difficult for me when everyone's just being nice in the film, that I think that actually causes more problems, because people, the audience watching it go, well, who's like that? No one's that simple.
I mean, it does also feel like the kind of film that the filmmakers aren't getting an awful lot of chance to make now. I mean, in the 40s, 50s and 60s, you could get two movie stars in a caper like this. And this feels rare. Just sat watching it, it's just, this shouldn't be rare, but it feels it.
It is. Look at High Society.
Yeah.
Man, they're not really that nice, but you do love them, because at least there's an honesty about it. There's a straightforwardness about it that you go, oh yeah, that's maybe what I would do. I would, or Philadelphia Story is the even better example of that. No one's really great in it. They're all rich, entitled arses, but God, they're amazing. And I know, and I think it's the same with when Harry Met Sally. Is he a bit of a shit, Billy Crystal? I think he is. So is she, sitting in that diner. She, it's really tough what she does. They're tough people. And I think if you're just going for the nice, you're giving yourself short shrift. You're going to undersell what potentially you've got, because romance is about accepting good and bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stories are about, hey, I am really selfish, venal, and don't see other people's issues very often, and I'm empathetic, but I love you. That's.
You should write the poster. That would be perfect.
That'd be good.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Good tagline.
James and Roger Deakins do a really brilliant podcast where they talk to, I don't know if you've heard any of it, where they talk to so many people behind the scenes. They did one with Mandy Moore, the choreographer Mandy Moore.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because I never really considered this. But Mandy Moore, as well as choreographing the likes of La La Land and Oscar shows, is called in to do action movies. And the stunt coordinator will bring her in because she brings a degree of movement. She brings an eye that they've just not seen. And of course, you've done musical, you've done choreographed dance sequences, you've not done action. And I just wonder if there was anything transferable to you in the kind of sequences you were building and the movement involved to going on to doing a big action sequence.
Yeah, they are. They certainly are, because that's about seeing the big picture and how bodies and action and people connect and move within that, and then how much scale that can give you and how much depth that can give you as well, and then how you tie all of that together and orchestrate it and kind of and give it a really sort of a fluidity in the action that's really kind of a joy to watch. But also in bringing in someone like Mandy, or in my case, Garrett Warren, the second unit director and the stunt arranger for Ghosted, and how you collaborate with that person and say, I really feel that there's an interesting idea of this guy with a chain on his belt that can then become a weapon. And he says, I get that, and he takes that idea and he gives you 7 options of what that can be, and then you develop and work on that process. The same as you can say, I want them to dance through a beauty salon. I've got an idea for a beauty salon. How do we weave them into that? And like for Rocket Man, for Honky Cat, this life of excess, and so what's really interesting and really exciting is about how to collaborate creatively on the physical elements of it and the storytelling, but still make it feel like it's spontaneous. And the real trick with action for me, or the thing I've learned I really want to get into more, is like, how do I make my characters not be ahead of the blow? I think that's
interesting.
Really, really interesting about Chris Evans in this film, is that he's not ahead of the blow, if you know what I mean. He's reacting to it, and as it is, rather than a lot of action now is everyone's really ahead of it and they all know where you're and what, and it's all really great you choreograph. But for me, that's a little bit flat. I get bored. They're like, well, I know what they're doing. I know, and I instructed Garrett to be, I was like, I need it to be kind of messy. I want it to be like, if you think of Raiders, right? The first Raiders, when he's on the horse chasing him down.
Just watched it the other week.
It's total messy, mate. Of course, it's not really, but it feels like he's making it up as he goes along. He actually says, "What are you doing?" I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. And I like action like that. I suppose my dance has a little bit of that in it as well.
Was this as big a sequence? There's one sizable action sequence in particular that's outdoors. And I'm just curious if this is as big a sequence as you've done off a soundstage, because I've kind of figured, again, the ending of Sunshine on Leith, the second ending of that was very big and very outdoors. But I don't think I think the moving parts were quite different to what you're up with here. Without wishing to spoil one or two of the sequences here, I'm just wondering how it changed the mechanic when you're doing a massive sequence and you're not on a soundstage and you've surrendered a bit of control.
Well, you don't surrender that much control. You surrender as little as possible. I mean, look,
but just to the elements, and
sure. It's still a relatively controlled environment, and there is some real magic going on there with the smoke and mirrors stuff and the visual effects guys. Look, the interesting thing about my career or just making films in general is that I've endeavoured to not run before I can walk. And at the same time, every project that I've made is somewhat more ambitious than the last or bigger financial, and that means with that comes a huge learning curve, and so I'm always try to be aware of the new experience and not trying to just fit it into something that I understand as what I've done before. There's going to be a whole new element to it that I've got to be excited and engaged about, and not daunted. I mean, of course you're daunted by it, but you use that as something that, as an opportunity to enjoy and learn. So I it was just an amazing experience to be out there on that, man. We shot a lot of it in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And being out there and just seeing how they did it and how they put it all together, and then I would go off and then stuff would come back, and I was like, wow. It's a really good collaborative experience. My background as an actor means I'm good at ensemble. I try to be good at collaborating, and I really enjoy that fact. And I try to appreciate everyone for what they do.
Yeah. Well, you learned that from the Green Cross Code ad, didn't you?
Exactly. Look, John Pertwee instilled it at a very early age, but he was very generous. Actually, I do remember that. He, there was the little girl who had a lisp, and he told her how to get rid of her lisp, and it's really stayed with me, even though I was 6 years old.
Yeah. What, just how to treat people on a set?
Just about how you can hear people. And he was like, you've got a lisp, and if you just keep your mouth closed when you say S, keep your teeth together, your tongue won't come through your teeth, and you won't have a lisp anymore. And she did it, and I was like, wow, he just taught her how to not have a lisp. I was only 6, but I remember it. There you go.
Still remember it.
What a movie story that is. What an anecdote.
No, I like that. That's lovely. You just said you were in Albuquerque and watching it come together. I mean, I noticed you worked with 3 editors on this, of which Chris LeBenson was one of them. What a legendary name of the last 20, 30 years.
Exactly. He's amazing.
So the film, because I also read the credits as well, because I'm that nerd, and you've never had that many VFX credits on any one of your films so far. So did it change the process of the film actually jigsawing together, that there were various elements coming together, and you didn't actually see a final version of this until quite late in the process?
Oh, no, you've got to be across it. I mean, what happens is that there's a deadline. There's a line in the sand. Apple are like, we love this movie. We're going to get it out on April 21st. And you're like, okay, it's now November and there's 400 more shots to do. And they're like, get more visual effects people. So, the visual effects producer has to start fielding out, shots from one sequence to 3 different visual effects houses. So there were 14 visual effects houses at the end of the day.
Yes, I lost count in the end.
Yeah. So, but you'd get like a wide shot from one visual effects house, and then a close up from another one, and then a cut back to a mid shot from someone else. So I had to be across all of them to make sure there was consistency. Thank God I had my wife working with me, Dahlia, who has almost a photographic memory. But to stay across all of that, we worked really hard when we were there in LA, just in the run up to Christmas and after the New Year. In fact, we were just watching the film over and over and over and over again, watching all of those shots. And I wasn't like, hey, I'll be in my palatial mansion in the hills and call me when it's ready. I went every day and sat in there and watched it, because it's got my name on it, and I love the film, and it's got to look as brilliant as it can.
I mean, I did a search for the film just last week looking at it. It said the running time originally, it said, was 149 minutes. I looked at that and thought, Dexter Fletcher doesn't do 149-minute films. He works his edit down to like a version that just feels about right. Was there that much longer version of the film? Because, I mean, it's a tight movie.
It is a tight movie. No, I think that was a mistake, to be honest.
I figured it was. I mean, it just struck me, your name and that running time. I mean, you have turned into James Cameron, I think.
Yeah, no, that hasn't happened yet. No one's going to give me that. No. I mean, like I said to you, after that 10 weeks, that film was running 1 hour 46, maybe.
Oh, okay.
148, and I think now with the credits, it's 152.
Yeah,
it's like. And it's all those visual effects artists that are on there. That's what
it's all their fault. I hear you.
That running time. No, it's tight. And like I said, there was no pickups, no reshoots. So and every scene I shot is in the film bar one. And that was a reshoot, which I didn't like. So I adapted it. That was the ending where I got them at the Kennedy Center in Washington.
Okay.
There was a slightly different ending. And I was like, this is not right. I wanted something that spoke about where they'd got to as a couple 3 months later, you know, and so, but also left the door slightly open.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
Well, that was just an upshot of a nice idea. But no, it was always tight. It was always good like that. And I like that, you know. I obviously got a bit over 2 hours. I think maybe Eddie, maybe Rocket Band's over 2 hours by a minute.
That's all right. We won't hold that against you.
All right, thank you.
So we've come to the end of your latest appearance on this podcast. So you have a project lined up already, I think, according to Hollywood Trade Press. But if you want to tell me you're doing the next Bond movie, which I know is a dream, I'd feel free to drop that in. I'm sure no one will pick that up.
Yeah, no, I wish I was.
I'll keep asking Barbara for you.
Thank you if you could keep. Yeah,
will do.
I'm trying to anyone who has any slight, connection to her. I keep asking her to ask on my behalf. Yeah. Eventually, maybe it'll be a war of attrition. She'll be like, "Oh my god, I've got to just let this guy do it. Otherwise, he'll never shut up." Skydance are talking to me about an interesting project,
yes.
And that's finding its way, and we'll see how that unfolds. You know, it's developing as we speak, but there's other things out there, so I don't know yet. I want to see what happens when this comes out on the 21st. I just want to enjoy this moment.
Well, I think you will. I think you've delivered again. And Dexter Fletcher, I look forward to your fourth appearance on this podcast. You make up 1.1% of the episodes so far. So,
I've got to get that number higher, Simon. I've got to
well, that's your career aim. Forget James Bond. Just like, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Brilliant. The very best to you.
See you next time. Thanks.
Take care.
Bud.
Bye.
Thanks, mate.
And that brings to an end my latest conversation with Dexter Fletcher. Hopefully I'll be able to lure him back to this podcast in due course. Ghosted is on Apple TV Plus from April the 21st, 2023. If I've not bored you completely, you can find more from me on Twitter @SimonBrew, more from Film Stories on Twitter @FilmStories as well. Our website is filmstories.co.uk. If you go to store.filmstories.co.uk, you can find all of our print magazines and our Blu-ray for sale as well. But I think that's enough for now. I'm going to crack on with putting together your regular episode of Film Stories. Until then, you all look after yourselves. You all take care. I'll be back soon with another bunch of tales for you. Bye-bye.